Welcome in to the Verts podcast. I'm Tyler Graves, joined alongside Carter Bales for this fourth episode of the Verts podcast. And Tennessee is coming off a 40-13 beatdown of LSU in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, definitely unexpected. I figured it would be a lot closer of a game. You had LSU winning that game.
I did.
And we were both pleasantly surprised, that's for sure. Tennessee came out to play, defense and offense. It was a sight to behold.
Yes, I notably was not very confident in my pick, but I did pick Tennessee to lose, so I will eat some crow on that. I'm glad I was wrong, obviously. Tennessee in this game showed everything to me that I have been wanting to see from them all year. The passing game was good. The run game was good.
Which had been a question really all year because we hadn't been dominant on the ground like we were last year.
We got a lot of pressure. Still, the secondary had some issues, but they only gave up 13 points. So the defense, I'm not going to dog on the defense today because the defense did pretty good against LSU.
Yeah, it was bend but don't
Bend but don't break. Yep,
really,
it was.
Really all game. LSU got on our side of the 50 multiple times. Brian Kelly's an idiot and goes for it every single time. And did they convert a fourth down?
I'll look right here. Fourth downs, 0 for 3, LSU. We were 3 for 3.
Yeah, no, looked great. We did really all game, both sides of the ball. Front seven makes up for the problems in our secondary, I believe. Even all year we've been able to stop the run really well, but we've struggled pass rush wise, and we sacked him, Jaden Daniels, I should say, multiple times Saturday.
Yes, that's right. Tennessee had several sacks. They held LSU to only 55 yards rushing, which is very good. Tennessee on the ground had 260 yards rushing, so that was a huge difference in the game.
Yeah, Jabari Small had a breakout game. He had 22 carries for 127 yards. That's close to 6 yards per carry. And then obviously 2 rushing touchdowns, the first touchdown and then the last touchdown of the game.
I want to go back to what you said, though, earlier about Brian Kelly. Isn't it so nice to finally have a coach who makes other coaches coach differently? Because, you see it at the end of the first half there. Tennessee, LSU has the ball. It's fourth and 10 on their own, or on Tennessee's 45-yard line?
I believe it was 4th and 10 at the 45, and usually you punt right there.
Yes.
But he realizes we can't stop that offense, so he goes for it, and ultimately it comes back to bite him because Tennessee ends up getting a field goal out of it.
Yes.
But, Brian Kelly is not necessarily known for being that aggressive, and Josh Heupel and that ridiculously fast offense, high-scoring offense, made him be aggressive right there and go for it.
And on the fourth down on their own side of the field.
Yeah, like the 20-yard line, 25-yard line, something like that?
No, it's about the 40.
Okay. The Kayshon Boutte one?
I'm talking about the 4th and 1 that we stopped them.
Yeah, where we stopped them again there. And then obviously where they're...
The one you're talking about
they're well inside our...
He should have kicked the field goal. Yes, he should have kicked a field goal. So Brian Kelly did not have a good game. He got outcoached, as he admitted at halftime.
Yep.
And that was very nice for me to see. Josh Heupel quite literally just coached circles around Brian Kelly on Saturday. Tennessee had let's see here, 239 yards through the air. LSU had 300. But like we said, or at least like I said, I don't really care that we gave up 300 yards passing because we only held them to 13 points.
No, yeah. Bend but don't break. That's
yeah. We
Really reiterating that.
we were good in the red zone.
Yes, that was the key. Even if he doesn't go for it on fourth down, we're holding them to field goals.
And by the way, Tennessee is perfect this year in the red zone. 100% efficiency by Tennessee's offense in the red zone. They have not gone to the red zone yet this year and left with no points.
When's the last time that happened?
These cheese and butter are so cheesy, airy, and puffy.
Well, we got an ad playing right there. We'll get that off.
Pause.
I think that was a Cheez-It ad.
That was a Cheez-It ad.
I
don't know why it just all of a sudden started playing.
Sorry about that. So, and now I want to talk about Hendon Hooker. So obviously, Hooker still has not thrown an interception this year, and he is starting to gain national recognition finally.
Yeah, about time.
Yeah, as he has 10 touchdowns, no interceptions on the year, 1,432 passing yards. Let me see if I can get his rushing yards right here. He's got 231 rushing yards as well and 3 rushing touchdowns. So Hendon Hooker now is being considered one of the favorites to be in New York at the end of the year because, and I really think it's because of this past Saturday.
Yeah.
Everyone finally saw, hey, Tennessee's for real. Even though some people were discrediting this win, which I have said multiple times makes no sense because we went on the road and beat a ranked team in Baton Rouge, even if they weren't a ranked team, even if they had 2 losses and LSU was unranked. It's still a good win because it's still over an SEC opponent in their home stadium, and Death Valley's a tough place to play, even though Tennessee half took it over.
Yeah, and here's the crazy part. If you're active on Twitter, you would have seen LSU fans and SEC football fans in general saying, oh, Tennessee's going to struggle against that LSU defense. That LSU defense is legit. They're going to have a rude awakening this Saturday. And then after the game is over, it's nothing but, oh, well, LSU's defense is terrible anyway. This is a bad LSU team. Give credit where credit is due. We dominated an SEC West school who's, they're having a down year. They're not great. But they were still a top 25 team.
If you want to sell me on the fact that the Pitt win was not impressive, you can, because let's face it, they had a lot of guys out. Now, I would argue that
Tennessee put the majority of those guys out.
Yes, we knocked them out. But yes, there were a lot of guys out. They were banged up. They had just played West Virginia. But to say that this LSU win, this 27-point LSU win is just not a big deal and Tennessee's not very good, you can't sell me on that because like I said, I picked them to lose, if that tells you anything. So I was kind of shocked by this outcome.
Yeah, and I mentioned in the last podcast, this felt like a trap game.
Yeah.
It did. It had all of the measurables to be a trap game. And Tennessee did not fall for the trap, obviously, as they absolutely blew out LSU. And Brian Kelly just obviously was not prepared to coach that game. Made some pretty bad decisions.
And LSU was not ready to play. I mean, they fumbled the opening kickoff.
Yep.
When is the last time that we have seen something like that go Tennessee's way? On the first play of the game, LSU literally just drops the kickoff and it rolls right into our hands. When is the last time that has happened?
When was Eric Ainge quarterback? 2005.
I mean, I guess you could say like 2016 we had some voodoo that season.
We did, but we also had a lot go against us.
Yeah, we did.
A whole lot go against us. We haven't had a whole lot of that this year. We haven't had a whole lot go against us. So we've still got a lot of football left.
Yep, and we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to return with SEC Talk. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our SEC Talk segment. Some big games occurred in the SEC last weekend. The first game I want to talk about is Kentucky and South Carolina. Kentucky, without their star quarterback, first overall draft pick, best quarterback ever,
According to Mel Kiper,
Will Levis,
goodness.
they
Ride
lost.
him a little harder, why don't you?
They lost to unranked South Carolina by a score of 24-14 at home.
Yeah, at halftime, it was all tied up at 7-all, and South Carolina ended up scoring 10 in the third quarter, and that ended up really being the end of the game at that point.
And the tone setter in this game, I watched this game for not long at all, but I did watch the first quarter or so. I think I watched the first quarter of this game. And the first play of the game, Kentucky runs some silly trick play. They try to do like a flea flicker. I don't even remember what it was. Well, anyway, they fumble it, and South Carolina recovers and scores the next play. And that really set the tone for the game because South Carolina knew at that point that they had a chance for the upset.
And here's the biggest problem. Even with Will Levis out, on paper, your team is better. Why run a fake, like I'm blanking right now, a trick play? Why run a trick play right there? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And Sharon, that's how you say his name, right? Sharon, something like that. Their backup quarterback, that's a freshman. He didn't really play bad. He was just over 50% passing. His QBR is not great, so he obviously missed some wide open passes. But no, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Rodriguez destroyed South Carolina on the ground, 126 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, so he couldn't get the yards when they mattered. But no, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. From a standpoint of if I'm Mark Stoops, I should go into this game knowing my team is better than anything Shane Beamer can throw at us. Especially with the way Spencer Rattler's played all year, my team is better even without my starting quarterback in. So, I mean, I don't think I'll ever understand why Mark Stoops thought it would be a good idea to
do that
on the first play of the game.
Well, Kentucky now is 4-2. They started off the season 4-0, of course, but they've dropped 2 games. They dropped this one, and they dropped that Ole Miss game the week before. So, and I've seen a lot of people now say, Kentucky's getting exposed because, and it seems like, every year. To me, every year they're overhyped. I mean, they play no one out of conference. No one. They schedule the same exact teams every year. They schedule like Miami, Ohio, Northern Illinois, insert FCS school here for their one of them.
And then they end their season against Louisville.
Yes. I mean, it's
and Louisville hasn't been good since Lamar Jackson left.
It is a joke of an out of conference schedule.
No, and that offensive line is just a glaring problem for them, and it stays a glaring problem.
That's the difference this year is their offensive line's not very good. So that's what I think will lead to Kentucky losing some games that they otherwise wouldn't in recent years.
No, they allowed 6 sacks to a South Carolina team whose defense really has not been good all year.
Yeah. So next game, let's move on to Ole Miss and Vandy. We'll talk about this one pretty short because I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch this game, but Vanderbilt was up at halftime.
Yeah, Ole Miss really struggled in the first half, and then they go to halftime. I think Lane Kiffin probably says a few choice words to his guys.
And he put the white hoodie on.
Yeah, and their offense comes out and scores 21 in the third quarter and 14 in the fourth, leading to a 52-28 victory over the Commodores. But Vanderbilt looked pretty good in that first half. I don't know if that's just a halftime adjustments maybe that they made, Ole Miss made, or if they just really didn't show up to play in that first half.
Well, Vanderbilt is better than last year. I'll give Clark Lee credit. They are better than last year.
100%.
Which is really to be expected. I mean, year 2, you should show improvement from year 1. Ole Miss, didn't Dart throw 2 interceptions in this game?
Yeah, 2 interceptions, 448 passing yards.
Wow.
So, yeah. 32 passes, so an average of 14 per completion. Excuse me, it was 25 for 32, 448 and 14 yards average with an 89.6 QBR. He had 3 touchdown passes to go with those 2 interceptions.
All right, next game, Missouri at Florida. Missouri covered the spread here. The spread was 10.5. 24-17 was the final.
Yeah, I didn't watch a whole lot of this game.
So Missouri was not able to obviously replicate their success from the week before, where they almost beat Georgia, as they lose to a what people are calling very mediocre Florida team. Anthony Richardson did not do much in this game. I know.
Passing or running.
Again, I did not watch this game because it was on the same time Tennessee played, but he how many passes did he throw?
14 for 6. He was 8 for 14 with 66 yards.
One touchdown, 1 interception.
I said this after the Florida game, and I'm going to reiterate it. His best game, probably of his career, was 2 weeks ago.
Well, that figures too because he was playing Tennessee. He's a Florida quarterback, and he played Tennessee.
That just happens.
Yeah, that's always how it is. They always play their best game against us, and once again, it's true. The difference is this year they didn't win.
Yeah,
so
they killed it on the ground though. Johnson Jr. and Trevor Etienne, along with Anthony Richardson, who had 5 carries for 45 yards, they totaled up for 231 yards rushing.
That's pretty good.
That's enough to get the win. Very spread out scoring. It was tied up at halftime, and then Florida was obviously able to score one more touchdown than Missouri.
So who do we think right now? Who do we think is the worst team in the East? Is it still Vanderbilt, or do we think it's? I mean, South Carolina beat Kentucky this past weekend, so I think here's how I look at the East. I think there's a clear 1 and 2
at Georgia,
being Georgia and Tennessee.
Yep.
After that, I think it's wide open because I think Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vandy are all pretty similar teams. I think Vandy's the worst out of those 4.
Yes.
Or out of those 5, excuse me. But I think the 4 teams that I just listed, Florida, Missouri, Kentucky, South Carolina, are all pretty evenly matched teams.
Yeah, and going into the season, we had said that Missouri was going to be the worst team in the East. At least I was
Vandy.
I was saying Missouri is probably going to be the worst team in the East. I thought Vanderbilt was going to end up pulling the upset against Missouri. But now, I would have to agree with you. I think Vanderbilt is last. I would have to give South Carolina number 3 because of the head-to-head right now. I'd put South Carolina, then Kentucky. Kentucky without Will Levis, I guess, is 4.
See, I think Florida's if I had to rank them, this is how I'd rank them. I would rank Georgia 1, Tennessee 2. I would rank Florida 3.
Even with the loss to Kentucky?
Yes, I would rank Florida 3. And to be honest, I would rank Kentucky 4 because they didn't have Will Levis against South Carolina. Should they have still won that game?
Yes.
But I would still rank them above South Carolina because as a program, I think they are better than South Carolina right
Maybe
now.
that shows that Will Levis is as good as everyone says he is.
And then
I still don't believe that.
I'd put South Carolina 5, Missouri 6, Vandy 7. That's how I would rank them.
That's fair.
Let's go over to the West now. Arkansas gets pretty much manhandled by Mississippi State.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
40-17. Mike Leach has things rolling down there in Starkville with the air raid.
Yeah. He still has one loss up his sleeve that he should not have, though.
LSU.
And I agree with you. I think it'll probably end up being LSU.
LSU lost.
Or
LSU won.
LSU beat him. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying. I was like, that didn't sound right at first. But yeah, LSU beat him. And he's still got one more loss up his sleeve, I believe, that he shouldn't lose.
And of course, playing in this offense, the quarterback will always put up video game numbers as Will Rogers throws for 395 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was 31 of 48.
Yeah, and he beats Aaron Murray's record for most completions as a quarterback in the SEC. So congratulations to him. Obviously, he doesn't
Yeah.
listen to the podcast, but got to give him congratulations.
Yeah, I'm sure Will Rogers doesn't listen to us.
No.
But
Why would he? But yeah, no, 31 for 48, 395 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's only, what, a sophomore? Or is he a junior?
Will Rogers, I'm pretty sure he is a senior. Let me look.
This is only a second year.
He's a junior. You're right.
It's only a second year starting.
But my guess is he'll turn pro after this year.
He
has the numbers to do it.
He definitely does, but those numbers are always skewed because he's in an air raid offense.
I mean, could you imagine Hendon Hooker in Mike Leach's offense?
Oh, they would have a chance to actually win, like legitimately win the West this year. They still do, but that LSU loss is going to kill them. And
looking at their schedule coming up, they have to play at Kentucky this week, then at Alabama the next week. They get a bye the 29th, and then their November stretch is 2 very winnable games and then 2 very difficult games because you've got Auburn, then Georgia, which is going to be tough, but I actually picked that to be the game Georgia loses before the season started. I don't know how I'll feel about that week, but I did pick Georgia to get upset by Mississippi State before the season started in Starkville. Then they play ETSU, which I can't imagine George Quarles beating Mike Leach.
No.
So, and then, of course, they finish with the Egg Bowl on the day before Black Friday at Ole Miss. So you've got, if you can just, I'll put it this way: if you can get through the month of October 6-2, you're doing pretty good if you're Mississippi State.
Yeah.
If they can split these last 2 games in October.
Yeah, that gives them what, 9-3 season or 10-2 season.
Well, if they're 6-2,
they're 5-1 right now.
If they're 6-2, let's say they split those 4 games that I just mentioned: Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, and Ole Miss. Let's say they go 2-2 in those games. Well, that puts you at 9-3.
Yep.
Which would put you at, my guess would be, I don't know,
it's
second in the West maybe?
Yeah, it's still not a New Year's game.
No. Well, actually, I would say third in the West because it just depends on the Ole Miss game.
Yeah.
Because if you beat Ole Miss, you're going to be second. If you lose to Ole Miss, you're probably going to be third. Arkansas, though, they were without KJ Jefferson. They really struggled through the air. Malik Hornsby had, this is crazy to me. He was 8 for 17, so he only had 8 completions, but those 8 completions were for 234 yards.
Yeah, 234.
So that's a 13.8 average. He threw 2 picks and 1 touchdown. So that was just weird to me. I was looking on my phone and I was like, that can't be right, but no, it was.
Yeah, he was also their leading rusher, 8 carries for 114 yards.
So Malik Hornsby is explosive, it looks like. It looks like he's explosive playmaker.
He
but
has
he also
accuracy problems, and their defense didn't help him out a whole lot this game.
Yep, and Arkansas this year has really disappointed me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I had them ranked in the top 10. I literally had them ranked 10th at the start of the year because I believed in Arkansas. I thought Sam Pittman was doing a good job down there, and I thought that they were going to have a really good year this year. I thought they were going to go 9-3 or 10-2.
Yeah, it's really starting to make Sam Pittman look like a one-year wonder out there.
Yep, it is, because right now they're sitting at 3-3. They got to go on the road this week to Provo, Utah, and play BYU, and that's no layup game.
No.
So, and then that's not even mentioning the rest of their schedule, because they still got to play, most of the teams in the West. So, I mean, it's not going to end up being a good season for Arkansas fans. We'll talk about this game before we talk about the last one, because the last one I want to save, I guess, the best for last. Auburn, Georgia, Georgia beats Auburn 42-10.
Yep. Absolute domination.
Somehow they cover 28-point spread.
Yeah. No, that one was very surprising to me.
That was your lock.
Yeah, it was my lock. And
plus 30. And they still couldn't cover.
No, it's because of what I saw. I saw in the Missouri game, and in the game before that against Kent State. Georgia just did not look good. Well, they put it together finally. Took them 2 weeks, but they put it together.
My favorite part of this game was seeing all the Auburn fans on Twitter.
Thinking they legitimately had a chance against Georgia?
No, asking what does Will Friend do during the week? Because did you see the videos of Auburn's offensive line during the game? I mean, there was one time their right guard literally just stood straight up, looked, guy run trot by him. He's still looking. He's still moving his head. He literally just stands there, and their quarterback gets nailed. And they're like, all the Auburn fans were complaining about Will Friend. I was like, I said while he was here, I was like, he's not a good coach because our offensive line was absolutely horrific in pass protection.
Oh yeah,
when he was here, and it never improved. In fact, it actually got worse. So yeah, I could have told you that when you hired him, Auburn.
Yeah, no, Will Friend was bad here. He's bad there. Yet he continues to get SEC jobs, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I guess that's the hierarchy of it.
And Brian Harson's going to be gone soon.
Yeah, he'll be gone. Let's see, who do they play next?
They play at Ole Miss.
Ole Miss,
and then they have a bye week. They might fire him after the Ole Miss game.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Harsin will probably be gone after that. If not after that, then he'll be gone after Mississippi State.
Yep. All right. So here's the last game. I watched this one pretty much the entire way through.
Yep.
Alabama barely survives against Texas A&M 24-20. And let's just get it out of the way. The last play of the game.
That was terrible. that was horrendous. That was a terrible call. Terrible call. You run a hitch where your guy is running away.
An outside hitch.
Yeah. And you had mentioned this to me. Even if he catches it, he's not in the end zone.
And that would have been even worse. It would have been worse if he caught the ball.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was bad. I mean, you got to set some sort of pick.
You have got to run a pick play in that situation. You either
send a guy in motion from the left side to the right side, make sure that the defense is moving, hike, pick, slant at 6 all day. At 6.
I mean, there's a million different things you can do right there. That's one of the only things I would not do there is run a. I mean, what were they on the 1 or
they were
2
on the
yard
2
line?
Because there was a pass interference in the end zone.
They threw a 1 yard outside hitch. And he's gotten drilled over it, and he should be drilled over it because that's a terrible play call in that situation.
Yep. Jimbo Fisher is proving each and every week that he should not have the play sheet in his hand. They need to hire somebody.
He desperately needs an offensive coordinator, in my opinion.
If he wants to keep his job, he's got to hire an offensive coordinator next year.
Alabama, without Bryce Young, really struggled. Jalen Milroe had, I think, 3 turnovers. I know he had 1 interception, and I think he had 2 fumbles. Or did he have let me look right here.
He had 2 fumbles, and one of the fumbles was lost. They were -4 in the turnover margin.
Which is big because if you know anything about Alabama's schedule, they play Tennessee next.
Yep.
And Tennessee's offense would make them pay for those turnovers.
It was really the Jahmyr Gibbs show. 21 carries, 154 yards. That's an average of 7.3 per carry. Tennessee's done a really good job so far of stopping guys on the ground. He scares me a little bit.
Yeah, Gibbs, I mean, we knew going into this season Gibbs was going to be a good player. He's a transfer from Georgia Tech. Everybody wanted him. Tennessee actually wanted him pretty bad, but he ends up going to Alabama. And he is their starting tailback there, doing pretty good. I would say him and Zach Evans, in my opinion, are the best running backs in the SEC. I think Rodriguez is good, but I don't think he's quite.
He's not as good as everyone puts him up to be. Again, overhyped because he's at Kentucky. He stays overhyped because he is at Kentucky. It just every year
Kentucky is just overhyped.
they just stay overhyped. There hasn't been a year recently where they haven't been overhyped, which Mark Stoops does a great job over there. They deserve hype because he, what year is he in? 8 or 9. He's the winningest coach there in school history, but it took him 8 or 9 years to get there, to get the 50 whatever wins, 51, 52 wins, something like that. So, I don't know. It's kind of depressing at this point.
He has the second best job in college football. The man that I think has the best job is Mel Tucker. And we're going to go ahead and transition into our, news around college football segment. Let's look at some teams here, some coaches, and I'll talk about Michigan State. So I looked at their schedule earlier today, and right now they're sitting on. Hold on a second. They're sitting at
2 and 4.
2 and 4. Yes,
That's bad.
and I looked at their schedule, guys. I think they're going 4 and 8 this year, and I'm not kidding. Maybe 5 and 7, but you look at their schedule coming up. They've got to go. They got to play Wisconsin. That's probably a loss because Wisconsin. I don't know if y'all saw this past weekend, but they beat Northwestern pretty bad. Then they have to play Michigan. That's obviously a loss. At Illinois is probably a loss this year. Rutgers, that's a toss-up game. Indiana, that's probably a toss-up game. I would probably tend to say Michigan State wins that game. And then they're not beating Penn State. So
It's hard to think they were in conversations for the college football playoff a few years ago.
last year,
It was last year.
last
wasn't
year,
it? Last
really,
year
they
went,
were
10-2 or something like that?
they went 9-3 with Kenneth Walker, and everyone said Mel Tucker's
The
Oh my
second coming of
gosh.
Jesus Christ in Michigan.
Mel Tucker is so good. Mel Tucker is such a great coach. They give him a $95 million extension, and then what do you know? He does jacked crap this year. It just makes no sense to me. It made no sense at the time. I just don't understand why in the world you would give that guy that much money when he's not done anything. He went 9-3 with Kenneth Walker, guys. 9-3 with a fantastic running back, and that's all they did was give the ball to Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, it's not. They were very one-dimensional. It's not like they were clicking on all cylinders, every single
Not to
position.
mention, one of those 3 losses was an absolute beatdown by Ohio State in the shoe.
I remember that because everyone was talking about how this is going to be game of the week, and it was actually game of the week, I believe.
It was over at halftime. It was like 42-0 at halftime.
Yeah, no, it was sad, very sad. That should have been the telltale sign right there that maybe we shouldn't extend this guy. But what do we know? What do we know?
Let's see, another team we can talk about real quick. Notre Dame.
They've surprised me a lot.
Yeah, they've improved.
Yeah,
Since
it's been
week
week
2.
by week improvement by Notre Dame. I've got to stop picking against them. They've won every game I've picked against them so far. So yeah, they've done a really, really good job. A whole lot of improvement. What is our coach's name?
Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman. I always forget his name. Marcus Freeman has really turned things around. Really started to build chemistry with that team.
And I was a believer in his. The first 2 games, they made me question my faith in him, but he has showed that I think he's going to turn out to do well there. Don't know if he's going to win any national titles or anything like that, but I do think
Brian Kelly couldn't either.
he's going to. I do think Marcus Freeman is going to end up being a good coach at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be there for a while. And then, of course, Notre Dame getting tired of not competing for national championships is going to end up getting rid of him, I'm sure, at some point. But
Let's talk about the number 4 ranked team in the nation now, the Clemson Tigers. Clemson moves up to 4. They are undefeated, obviously, on the year. They're they're going to play Florida State this weekend. And Florida State played NC State really tight. I guess that was 2 weeks ago now. So, excuse me, that was last week. That was last week that Florida State played NC State 19-17. So, I think this, and the game's in Tallahassee. I think that game could be quite a test for Clemson.
Yeah,
what do you think?
The biggest one since Wake Forest, I think, because Clemson did a pretty good job against NC State, won by 10?
Yeah, but Wake Forest, it did go into double overtime.
Double overtime, and Wake Forest arguably should have won that game. Yeah, no, this I would say is probably their biggest test since. Now, do I think Florida State's going to pull it out? I don't know.
We'll pick that game.
We will pick that game later. But Florida State's, they've looked pretty good this year compared to, where they've been since Jimbo Fisher left some odd years ago.
All right, and then I think the last thing we need to talk about is so College Game Day is going to be coming to Tennessee for the second time in 4 weeks.
When's the last time how often do they do that? I don't watch College Game Day a whole lot. When's the last time they've gone to the same place twice? Now, covered the same teams multiple times. I get that.
I mean,
coming to the same place twice.
To me, it seems like they go to Alabama or Ohio State or Michigan like twice a year. But
they tend to stay up north.
Obviously, they don't. Yeah. To be honest, I was shocked that they decided to pick Alabama, Tennessee. I thought they would go to Penn State, Michigan. I never expected them to go to NC State, Syracuse, because that's, in my opinion, the fourth best game this weekend. Obviously, I think Alabama, Tennessee is the best game. Penn State, Michigan, I think second best.
You've got top 5 versus top 10, right?
I think Oklahoma State, TCU is a better game than NC State and Syracuse. So I don't understand why. I mean, I guess they're defending their program and everything up there. But I saw a lot of Syracuse fans mouthing on Twitter about why is Tennessee getting another game day?
Because Tennessee's in the top 10 and they're playing against a top 5 opponent.
Yeah,
I mean that's
it's a no-brainer. I mean, you add up the rankings between Alabama and Tennessee. It's 9. Okay, next closest is Penn State, Michigan. That's 15 because 10-5, and then after that, it's it's 20 plus.
Plus, there aren't a whole lot of atmospheres like Neyland Stadium on a Saturday.
No, and
even game day fans will say.
Everyone will get to experience that this Saturday. I guess Saturday afternoon because it is at 3:30.
You best bet there will be guys out here Saturday morning getting ready for the game though.
All right, we are going to take a break, and we will be back with our pick segment. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our pick segment. So first we're going to do SEC games. The first one we'll do is Mississippi State at Kentucky. I'll go first. I'm going to go with Mississippi State on the road. I think they improved to 6-1.
Yep. Kentucky's struggled the past 2 weeks. They're going to struggle against Mike Leach. The Pirates going to have that offense rolling. Mississippi State wins. Mississippi State covers.
All right, so next game's going to be Auburn at Ole Miss. Let's see here. Ole Miss is a 15-point favorite at home. Ole Miss lost to Auburn last year. But I think Ole Miss is going to get it done this year. I would not touch the spread, though, because I could see this either being a blowout or being a close game, and I really don't know which one it's going to be. My guess is a blowout, but I wouldn't touch the spread.
Ole Miss wins this game. Brian Harsin gets fired for being 3-4.
All right, Vanderbilt at Georgia.
That's easy. Georgia wins.
This is no contest.
Yeah, Georgia wins.
Georgia will win.
Does Georgia cover, though?
Let's look at the spread here.
38, minus 38.
I'm going to say no.
That's big. That one's tough for me. I'm I'll say no. I'm going to say Vanderbilt's going to score a touchdown, and I don't think Georgia's going to score 40.
All right. Arkansas at BYU. Okay, let's talk about this game a little bit. So, as we mentioned, Arkansas has struggled this year so far. They've been pretty disappointing. BYU, which, by the way, I would have never guessed that this would be an unranked matchup, but
No.
it is now.
I figured both teams would be ranked.
Yeah, it's an unranked matchup. Obviously, it's at BYU. Arkansas is favored by 1.5. So, and it comes on 3:30 ESPN. Carter, what do you think? What do you think about this game?
Is KJ Jefferson back for this game?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
What was his injury? I was never positive on what his injury was.
I think he's gonna.
I think
it might have been a concussion. I can't remember.
Okay. Well,
something makes me think that it's a concussion. Which, if it's a concussion, he's probably going to play in this game.
Yeah, this one's tough. BYU has not played terribly this year, but they do have that loss to Notre Dame. Arkansas has played bad all year, or not all year, but for the most part. Oh Lord, I'm gonna go BYU to win, which means it'll be BYU plus 1.5.
I'm going to take Arkansas. I'm going to roll with the SEC team. I'm not very confident in that pick, but I will go opposite of you and try to pick up a game here. LSU at Florida is our next game. This is a night game. Florida's favored by 2.5 points at home in the Swamp. I'm going to go with Florida to win and Florida to cover because after watching LSU last week, I was not impressed to say the least.
No, after watching Jaden Daniels for a complete game, he feels a lot like Jared Garantano. Doesn't make the right read at the right time. Isn't confident in his decision making. I think Anthony Richardson has a pretty good game in the air, good game on the ground, and Florida pulls this one out.
And not to mention, LSU's probably still going to have offensive line issues, especially on the left side.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's move into our non-cons slate of games. So, first one we're going to pick is Penn State at Michigan. Battle of undefeateds. Penn State ranked 10th. Michigan is ranked 5th. Michigan is favored by 7 points. I'll start. I'm going to go with Michigan to win, but Penn State to cover.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think Michigan's probably going to win this game since it's at home. I'll take Michigan to cover as well.
You mean Penn State? Are you taking Michigan or Penn State to cover?
Michigan to cover.
So you're taking them to cover the 7 points?
Yeah.
All right. I said plus 7. I think Penn State plus 7. But I think Michigan's going to win the game. So next game. So last year this game was close, and no one really expected it. But this year, people are expecting it to be close. So it's kind of weird how this game has changed. But it's Kansas at Oklahoma. Kansas is ranked 19th, but Oklahoma's favored by 9 at home. Carter, I don't understand this line at all. It makes no sense to me. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Kansas to win the game. And obviously, I'm going to take them plus 9. I just think that is like the dumbest line I've ever seen, to be honest.
Yeah, Oklahoma looked absolutely terrible against Texas.
49-0.
Kansas has a really good offense, almost beat TCU, but was unable to finish it out. So I think Kansas is going to win this game.
All right, so we are in agreement right there that is the dumbest spread of all time.
Oh, it's a bad spread. It's a very bad spread. I would hammer it.
Next game, number 15 NC State versus number 18 Syracuse. Syracuse is undefeated. NC State has 1 loss, and it was obviously to Clemson. Carter, what are you thinking here? ACC matchup.
Yes, it is an ACC matchup. Syracuse is undefeated. But I believe in the Wolfpack here. I think the Wolfpack and NC State is going to end up winning this game, which means it will be NC State plus 3.5.
All right. Well,
I'm just not confident in Syracuse.
I'm going against FPI and the odds as well. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm going to go with NC State. I just think they're a better football team.
Yep.
That's why.
On paper, in general, just better football team.
All right. Next game, Oklahoma State at TCU. This is a Big 12 matchup. And to be honest, this might be for a spot in the Big 12 title game because the Big 12 now determines their Big 12 championship based off of the two top teams in the conference based on conference record. They don't do divisions anymore, basically, is what I'm saying. They just take, like, if you have an undefeated team and you have a one-loss team in conference records, then those two teams are probably going to play. So, and there's a bunch of tiebreakers. I won't get into it, but like if teams are tied, they have a tiebreaker system. And last year you saw it. Dave Aranda kicked a field goal with like 2 seconds left when he was up on, I think, Oklahoma, just because he wanted to make sure that he won the tiebreaker if that was the won the point differential if that was the tiebreaker at the end of the year. So, but anyway, TCU is favored by 4 at home. This is a tough game for me to pick because I think Oklahoma State's a good team. I've watched them many times this year. I watched them last week actually a lot against that in that Texas Tech game. Excuse me. So I think Oklahoma State's good. TCU scares me because of Max Duggan, their quarterback.
Yeah, he's done really well this year.
I don't know where to lean this game because we know it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no denying
this
that.
is going to be an offensive game.
I would honestly take the over 68.5.
Yeah, I'd say both teams are probably going to end up being in the 40s by the time this game is all said and done. At least one team is going to be in the 40s. The other one's going to be high 30s. I'll go ahead and pick this one. So TCU has 2 ranked wins on the year. They absolutely demolished Oklahoma, and then they have a shootout against Kansas. Another reason I think that Kansas spread is so terrible. Oklahoma State only has 1 ranked win against Baylor, and that was a pretty close game. Baylor has struggled since. I think I'm going to take TCU to win this game, and I'm gonna take Oklahoma State at plus 3.5. I think it's going to be a 1 point to 2 point game.
All right, we are not in agreement here as I'm taking Oklahoma State to win the game. The main reason for this is because I've already seen them go on the road once this year and beat a ranked Baylor team. So I'm going to bet that happens again, and I'm going to take the Cowboys on the road. Next game, USC at Utah. I mean, there's a lot of good games this weekend, guys.
This is one of the best weekends in college football really all year.
Yeah. Probably will end up being the best as far as matchups goes all year long. This is a night, well, it's 8 o'clock Eastern time, so it's going to be 5 o'clock Pacific. USC is ranked 7th. Utah is ranked 20th. Utah is favored by 3.5 points at home.
Yeah, which is surprising to me.
What's FPI say on this game?
FPI's got Utah at 61.7, so almost 62 to 38 in favor of Utah, which is crazy to me because of how explosive USC's offense has been this year. They've struggled recently, I believe.
They're very much a highlight team.
Yes, I would agree with that. I'll start this one out. Caleb Williams has had a really, really good year, and I think he continues to do that. I'm going to pick USC to win.
You know, before the year, I looked at this game and I said this might be for, the number 1 seed in the Pac-12 because again they don't do divisions anymore. They're like the Big 12. They don't do divisions anymore.
Yep.
So, and I really thought Utah was going to beat Florida. So I actually thought Utah was going to be undefeated going into this game. They actually have 2 losses now because they lost to UCLA last week. Excuse me. So I'm gonna go with Southern Cal because Utah's let me down twice this year.
Yeah, and they'll probably do it again.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna let them let me down, and I'm going to go with Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. All right, next game, Minnesota at Illinois, Big Ten matchup here. Carter, this is another interesting line. Illinois is at home. They are ranked 24th. Minnesota is unranked. Yet the spread is Minnesota minus 6.5.
Yeah, no, that is weird. Minnesota was ranked at one point.
Yeah, they
year.
were.
This is another tough game. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The spread, obviously.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm taking Illinois plus 6.5. And I'm going to take Minnesota to win. But I'm taking Illinois to keep it close.
Oh, goodness. You know what? I think Illinois will probably end up winning this game, just strictly because it's at home.
They won an ugly game last week at home against Iowa, 9-6.
Yeah.
I
feel like any game Iowa plays in is an ugly game this year.
I mean, it's that Brian Ferentz offense and obviously Kirk's not going to fire his family.
No.
So, Wisconsin at Michigan State. We'll talk about this one. We'll keep this one short because these teams are not very good. But I did want to pick this game because we talked about it a little bit when we talked about Michigan State. I'm going Wisconsin. They're favored by 7.5, by the way. I'm going with the Badgers.
Yeah, Mel Tucker's a bad coach. Wisconsin wins this game.
All right. North Carolina at Duke. And no, we're not talking about basketball. We're talking about football. These teams are actually both have pretty good records this year. UNC's 5-1, Duke is 4-2. North Carolina's favored by 7 points, although the game is at Duke. I'll start. I'm going to go with North Carolina here, mainly because of Drake May and the North Carolina offense.
Yeah, I'm going to take North Carolina to win this game, but since it is at Duke and they're coming off of a loss to Georgia Tech, they're going to come back and have a pretty good game. So I'm going to take Duke plus 7.
All right. And then our last game we are picking, of course, is the Toilet Bowl. This week's Toilet Bowl is none other than New Mexico versus New Mexico State.
A little bit of an in-state rivalry right there.
New Mexico is 2-4 on the year. New Mexico State is 1-5. So these teams, neither one of them are very good. Their quarterbacks, New Mexico State's leading passer has thrown for 398 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. New Mexico's leading passer, Kendrick, he has 696 yards, so a little better. And then 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So, and the over-under on this game is 38 points. So if you want to, oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, this game is on FLOF.
We love FLOF.
Second toilet bowl game this year we've had on FLOF. I still don't know what FLOF is.
We don't know what it stands for. We don't know what channel it is. We don't plan on figuring it out. We probably have to buy a package for that game. Who would buy a package for New Mexico against New Mexico State? I guess alumni. I'll start this one out. New Mexico State is going to get their second one of the season. They'll be 2-5 after this. So that's about all I got.
So Carter's rolling with the underdog here.
I did it last week and it got me a win.
Yep.
So
against Nevada.
We don't know anything about these.
I got to
teams,
go
by the
with
way.
New Mexico. I got to go with the 6.5 point favorite. I can't pick New Mexico State.
We don't know anything about these teams. We are going strictly off of spread and statistics.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know anything about these teams. And actually, it wasn't New Mexico State last week. It was Colorado State.
Yeah.
And I did not know this, but interesting fact. Jay Norvell used to be Nevada's coach, of course. He's now the coach at Colorado State. So he beat his old team. So
would you look at that?
We didn't even mention that, but I mean, of course, we didn't know that.
No, I had no
beforehand.
idea.
I had no idea Jay Norvell was Colorado State's coach before Saturday, because that's when I found it out. All right, now let's transition into our top 25 ranking segment. I'm going to read off the AP top 25 here, and we'll talk about these teams, and then we'll also give our own opinions and our own top 15 rankings. So, Georgia is now the new number 1 team in the country. Ohio State is 2, followed by Alabama at 3, Clemson 4, Michigan 5, Tennessee 6 now, USC 7th, Oklahoma State 8, Ole Miss 9, and Penn State rounds out the top 10. UCLA moves up to 11, Oregon 12, TCU 13, Wake Forest 14, NC State 15, Mississippi State 16, Kansas State 17, Syracuse 18, Kansas 19, Utah 20, Cincinnati 21st, Texas 22nd. Actually, looks like Texas and Kentucky are tied at 22nd because they both have 150 points in the poll.
So are they both going to be put at number 2, or are they just going to go off of win-loss? Or they can't go off of win-loss. They're both 4-2. I don't know how they would manage.
So I think like when we're watching games, I think you'll see Texas 22 and then Kentucky 22. I think they'll both say
just
22.
be 22.
And then Illinois 24. James Madison is 25.
Yeah. Some Sun Belt. Get some Sun Belt in there.
Undefeated James Madison.
Yeah.
So the thing that really stands out to me here is, well, number 1, UCLA moved way up, and they should have.
Yeah.
Because they beat Utah. And another thing is, of course, Alabama. I thought Alabama would drop to 2. I did not think Alabama would drop to 3. I thought they would be number 2, and I actually thought Ohio State would be number 1. I thought Georgia would stay 3, and that Ohio State would move up to 1.
Yeah, I really thought Ohio State would move up to 1. I think they deserve to move up to 1 because they really haven't had a close game all year, have they? Not necessarily.
No, they haven't. And in the coaches' poll, Alabama is number 1.
Yeah. The coaches' poll didn't change at all, 1 through 10. So if that tells you anything,
those coaches they just go in there and pick the same teams they did the week before.
Yeah.
And then other big movers, Mississippi State, they moved up 7 spots. Utah and Kentucky obviously dropped. They both dropped 9 spots. So. Carter, do you want to give your rankings?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give my top 15. So, as we mentioned before, I've got Ohio State at 1. They've looked like the best team in football so far to me. I have no other things to say about that. Number 2, I've got Georgia. Georgia looked really, really good in their last game against Auburn. Unexpectedly good, as they've struggled recently, but they were able to pull that out. I've got Bama down to 3 from 1 because they really struggled against Texas A&M, who is not a very good football program. At number 4, I've got Clemson. I've got Clemson moving into the top 4. They've looked pretty good recently. Number 5, I've got Michigan. Michigan moves out of the top 4 because Clemson has just looked better. Number 6, I've got Oklahoma State. I don't think Tennessee has, even with that big win. I don't know. I think Oklahoma State at 6, Tennessee at 7. I've got them moving up 1 spot. USC at 8. I've got Penn State at 9. UCLA at 10 after their really big win. I put them in the top 10. Ole Miss at 11 because they struggled in the first half against Vanderbilt. TCU at 12 after their win against Kansas. NC State at 13, Oregon at 14, and then I put Mississippi State in my top 15 because the Pirates got things rolling down in
Starkville. Stark Vegas.
Yep.
All right, so you just heard Carter's top 15. I'll read mine off. I have Ohio State at 1. The reason I have them over Georgia and Alabama is because Georgia and Alabama have both had close games this year, and Ohio State really hasn't. I mean, the Notre Dame game, week 1, was kind of close, but final, I think, was 21-10. So just kind of a low-scoring defensive game. So I've got Ohio State at 1, and I think they've looked better week to week, whereas Georgia and Alabama,
they've been hit or miss.
Georgia's looked worse recently.
Oh, yeah. Georgia's been very hit or miss all year.
Yeah. I've got Alabama at 2.
Okay.
I think Alabama and Georgia are very close, but if they play tomorrow on a neutral field, I'd probably favor Alabama with Bryce Young.
That's the big one.
I would favor Alabama with Bryce Young over Georgia. I've got Clemson at 4, Michigan 5. I have Tennessee at 6, and the reason I have Tennessee over Oklahoma State is who's my 7th, who's ranked 7th in mine. The reason I have Tennessee over them is because Oklahoma State has had a couple of close calls with teams that, in my opinion, are not as good as the teams that Tennessee has beaten.
No, any team in the SEC is a tough team to play, and then that Pitt team was good whenever we did play them.
I watched the Texas Tech Oklahoma State game this past weekend, and I just thought Tennessee, slightly better, very similar, I would say. If they played, maybe we'll get Oklahoma State in a bowl game. I think that'd be a really good. That'd be a really fun, really fun ball.
Especially since a lot of Tennessee fans were calling for Gundy to come to Tennessee.
Yeah,
at one point.
So I've got Oklahoma State 7, USC 8, Penn State 9, Ole Miss 10. I moved UCLA all the way up to 11. I think I had them at like 24 or 23 before Saturday. Texas 12th. Now this is with Quinn Ewers. I think with Quinn Ewers, Texas is a top 12 team in the nation. They might even be a top 10 team, but I'm not going to put them in the top 10 just because they have two losses. NC State 13, TCU 14, Oregon 15. So that's my top 15. You had Mississippi State, I think, at 15. I've got them at 17. So they're just outside looking in.
It's nice to say that Kentucky's not in the top 15 anymore.
No, I have Kentucky at 25.
Yeah.
I know we don't read all the way to the 25, but I've got them at 25. All right. We are going to take our last break, and we will be back with the final segment. It will be the Tennessee versus Alabama preview. You're listening to the For Verts podcast. Welcome back to the For Verts podcast, and it is now time for the Alabama preview.
Game of the year.
Yes, game of the year, as that will be the thumbnail on this video. Alabama, ranked 3rd in the nation, travels to Knoxville to face number 6, Tennessee. And Carter, this is the biggest game, in my opinion, since the 2001 SEC Championship. I'm talking for Tennessee. I think this is the biggest game since the 2001 SEC Championship against LSU that we lost.
Yeah, this game is massive. Really big. If you win this game, it's a massive program builder. Massive momentum builder. Because I know we're going to have a lot of recruits in the house. A lot of recruits in the house. If we win this game, Tennessee, I'd like to say Tennessee is starting to put themselves on the map. If we win this game, Tennessee is on the map. Tennessee is a top 4 team if you win this game.
And if you win this game, playoff is a real thing, guys.
Yeah.
Playoff all of a
sudden.
Even
with the loss to Georgia, playoffs
if you beat Alabama, playoffs is a possibility. So, huge game. I want to talk about this rivalry a little bit. So, obviously, Alabama has pretty much dominated the rivalry recently. They've won since 2006 is the last time that Tennessee won, so Alabama's won 15 in a row, 15 straight. The two games that really have, there's only been two games since Nick Saban arrived at Alabama that have been close in this rivalry. One was 2015.
Where Derrick Henry decided to do Derrick Henry things and
Yes.
destroy us in the second half.
And then the other game was, and ball fans vividly remember this, the 2009 Kiffin game where we kicked it into Terrence Cody's stomach. That still gives Tennessee fans nightmares as we lost to number one. They were ranked number one. Alabama 12-10, I believe. So that's kind of a brief history of this game's recent history. Of course, last year Tennessee lost 52-24.
Game was a lot closer than that going into the fourth quarter.
Yes, that game, that was the classic. Last year's game was the classic Tennessee doesn't have enough depth yet.
Yeah.
That's what lost Tennessee the game.
And that was the
year.
problem all year last year. Tennessee just doesn't have depth.
That's what happened against Florida and Alabama and
Really, Purdue, even.
Well, Georgia was so talented that it didn't matter. That's not really why we lost to Georgia, but definitely Alabama, Florida, maybe Purdue. I think Purdue was more of just pathetic defense.
Oh, yeah. No, that was bad.
We couldn't
defense.
tackle anyone.
Especially that running back they had. He was a bowling ball. Yeah, I remember that. That game was ridiculous.
So, Alabama's favored by 7.5 in this game. And the line has, the line opened up at 8. It's gone down a half a point. No one knows if Bryce Young is going to play or not.
No, he didn't throw a single pass during warm-ups last week. But that could have been just strictly precaution. I just think it's odd that he didn't throw a single pass. Apparently, he was wanting to get into the game near the end of the A&M game, and Saban wouldn't let him, which makes me think that he's probably going to be ready to go against us. But knowing Nick Saban, we're not going to hear anything until an hour before kickoff.
Yeah, so Bryce Young has an AC joint sprain, I believe. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Which is a 2 to 4 week recovery usually. He injured it 2 weeks from this coming Saturday because he injured it against Arkansas.
I think he's going to end up trying to play in this game, but he's going to get knocked around a little bit because our front seven Alabama's front seven is good, but Tennessee's front seven, or Alabama's offensive line is good, I should say, but Tennessee's front seven has been really good all year, getting pressure when they need to get pressure. So he's going to hit the ground a few times, and I think that's going to mess with him a little bit.
One thing I want to mention is, so Tennessee, last week I noticed this. When Tennessee brought pressure against LSU, they really struggled. I mean, they really struggled. When Tennessee would send 5 or 6 guys, they struggled in protection. But when Tennessee only rushed 4, it was a different story. It seemed like Daniels had all day to throw when they only rushed 4, unless Tennessee would stunt. Sometimes they would stunt. So what that means is they would get the end, they would get the defensive end.
And they'd cross.
Yes, they'd cross. When they did that, they had a lot of success against LSU. Alabama's offensive line is notorious for holding. I don't have to tell you this. All you have to do is turn on any Alabama game from the past 10 years, and you'll see about 8,000 holds that, by the way, are never called. They're just magically never called by SEC officials. So that's something to watch Saturday. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of holdings that are missed.
There's going to be a lot of holdings, and it's going to be all over Twitter.
At Greg Sankey.
Yeah.
At SEC.
Fix this, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to get fixed because it's Alabama. There's a bias. Really, either way, on the field or in the booth, we get to listen to Gary Danielson this week. Woo! Alabama this, Alabama that. This team looks just like Alabama. Yeah, blah, 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 blah.
When Jalen Milroe throws his first completion of the game, that's a 1-yard swing route, Gary Danielson's going to say, that's the best pass I've ever seen.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Even whenever our our radio guys on 99.1 The Sports Animal are discussing how biased Gary Danielson is. Yeah, it's not just Tennessee fans saying it. It's the professionals saying it.
Statistically, if you look at these two teams, Tennessee's offense so far in 2022 has been better. Alabama's obviously got a very good offense, but Tennessee's offense on paper is better so far. And I think that's big in this game because if Bryce Young doesn't play, like I mentioned earlier, I mentioned this when we were talking about LSU, I think. Or no, it was actually when we were talking about the A&M Alabama game. If Alabama turns the ball over in this game 4 times, they will lose. There's no doubt in my mind.
Alabama is the only team with a negative turnover differential that's still undefeated.
Because Alabama cannot afford to turn over the ball against Tennessee. Why? Because Tennessee will make them pay. You cannot give the ball to Tennessee. You can't give Tennessee extra possessions.
No, you can't. You can't do that and expect to win a game. And Alabama has had multiple turnovers all year in multiple games. They've had 2+ turnovers. That's not okay in big boy football, the SEC, a top 10 matchup.
And this is not even debatable. This is Alabama's toughest test to this point in the season. They were tested last week against Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
They won by 4 points. It came down to the final play. I think some people are forgetting about the Texas game. They went over to Austin and they barely snuck out of there with a win, 20-19 on the road. And this environment that they're coming into on Saturday at Neyland Stadium is going to be absolutely electric. It's going to be hostile. It's going to be everything that you want to see as a college football fan.
Mark my words, this game will be louder than Florida. I didn't think that would be possible.
100%.
I didn't think that would be possible, but the amount of hype going into this game, there's more hype going into this game. I can feel it on Tuesday afternoon. There's more hype going into this game than there was going into Florida.
Yeah, and I've said this before. Whenever Tennessee plays Alabama, it just feels different than when they play Florida. I don't know if now this is recently, because recently this rivalry has not been a rivalry. It's not been close.
No.
Alabama's ran away with this game, and pretty much every time these two schools have met, Alabama's just won in a blowout. But now that Tennessee and Alabama are now that this is actually going to be a close game probably, and these teams are fairly evenly matched, it just feels different. You don't have the impending doom feeling that you have against Florida. Because
No, it's not the bad feeling in your stomach that
Yes.
you get every time you play these guys. You feel confident, and you can see it in the players. They feel confident going into this game.
Yes.
Sometimes, they'll come out and say, oh, no, we're not worried. This is just another football game. And you know that they're lying through their teeth. But with these guys, and with the way Heupel has coached them and taught them to play the game, you can tell these guys think that they can go out there Saturday after Saturday and win. And that is the biggest difference this year and last year even compared to years in the past.
Alabama, the past 2 seasons, I'm not sure what has caused this, but Alabama on the road is a different team, much different team than Alabama at home. Alabama struggled in 5 games last year, and I'm pretty sure
one of them being Auburn, who was not good last year.
Yes,
The Iron Bowl was
I'm pretty sure 4 of the 5 games that they struggled in were on the road. Let me look here. Okay, so their first game that they struggled in last year was at Florida. Florida ended up being a terrible team. Alabama won 31-29. So they won by 2 at Florida. Okay. Then October 9th, of course, they went on the road and lost at Texas A&M to an unranked Texas A&M team. Then they played LSU off of a bye week at home. This was the game at home. They played LSU at home and only beat them by 6 points, 20-14. And again, LSU wasn't very good last year. Actually, excuse me, there was one more home game that they struggled in. Arkansas. Arkansas played them tight. Arkansas only lost by 7 points, 42-35 last year. And then Auburn, as you mentioned, the Iron Bowl. Alabama won in quadruple overtime, 24-22. So, why do I say all that? Well, I say it to reiterate my earlier point that Alabama this season and last season has struggled multiple times, particularly on the road. I think that has a lot to do with the offense, and I think that no matter who the quarterback is on Saturday,
they will not be able to hear themselves think.
They will struggle in this game just because of the crowd noise, the environment. I mean, you talk about the most difficult places to play in the Southeastern Conference. This game is going to be one of the most raucous environments the SEC has seen in the past few seasons.
No, they might very well break the sound record set in the Ole Miss game. They might very well. They will break it. I thought they might break it against Florida. I don't think they did. They will break it against Alabama. At least within the first 2 quarters, it will be broken.
And the goalposts will come down if Tennessee wins.
Oh yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind.
Danny White's already prepared with that. He's went to a still working company and asked them to make 2 new goalposts just in case, because fans will storm the field if Tennessee is able to win this game.
All right, it is picks time. Carter?
I'll go ahead. This is Tennessee's best opportunity that they have had since that game against them with Lane Kiffin as head coach. This is our best opportunity to win this game. Offense has been on fire all year. Defense has struggled at times, but they've been bend but don't break all year. This is a tough game for me to gauge, because I really believe that we have a chance to win, and I haven't had that feeling in a long time as a Tennessee fan against Alabama. But
I've never had that feeling.
Well, I was young and dumb in 2016 and thought we had a chance, and then we got blown out. But it's still Nick Saban. I feel like Bryce Young is probably going to play in this game. I'm about 90% sure that he will start this game. And if he is completely healthy, and I'm assuming he is, I've got Alabama winning this game, but I've got Tennessee covering. I think it's going to be Tennessee plus 7.5. I think it's going to be a field goal game. I've got us losing 38-35. If Tennessee scores 40 points, they will win this game, but they will not score 40 points.
So I have thought about this game a lot. And to be honest, I didn't think we would be 5-0 going into this game before the season started. But I still circled this game because it was at home, and what all I just read off about Alabama being terrible on the road, I thought about that a lot. And I said, if Alabama loses a game this year, it's probably going to be to Tennessee. And I've had a lot of weird gut feelings about this game that I like. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Have absolutely zero clue, and obviously that will play a huge impact on this game. Here's the thought, though. If it is Milroe, does that help or hurt Alabama? Obviously, you would immediately say, well, that hurts Alabama. But think about it this way. Tennessee stops the run against every single team they play. What does Milroe do well? Run the ball. What does Bryce Young do well? throw the ball. Well, in my opinion, anybody can throw it on Tennessee's defense.
Yeah.
So would you rather go up against a perfect passer in Bryce Young, who's not as mobile? He can run a little bit, but he's not as mobile as Milroe. Or would you rather go up against Milroe, who's not nearly as good a passer, but
the best running quarterback we've faced all year?
Yes.
That's tough. It really is. I would still have to say I'd rather go up against a running quarterback because Tennessee has proven that they can stop the run, even with Anthony Richardson.
I would lean towards going up against Milroe just because I think Bryce Young is that good.
Oh, yeah.
I think Bryce Young is that good.
He's the most accurate passer in college football, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, I've had some good feelings going into this game, and I am going to pick Tennessee to beat Alabama and end the streak this Saturday. I'm going to take Tennessee 45, Alabama 38. That's my final score prediction. And
winning by 7.
Yep. And an interesting note here. Depending on where you look, you will see that the series record for this game, Alabama leads the series 58 and 37, and then there's like a bunch of ties. For some reason, back in the day, this game ended in a lot of ties.
Which is why it's such a big rivalry.
Did you know that on Saturday it will be 5,838 days since Tennessee beat Alabama in 2006?
5,838 days?
Kind of weird how numbers work, because if Tennessee wins, the series record is 58 and 38.
Yeah, and I saw this on Twitter earlier this week. Hendon Hooker was born in 1998. Everyone is saying he's the savior. He's going to do it. It's been in front of us the whole time because he was born in 1998. I saw that earlier on Twitter this week. Yeah, I got a chuckle out of that one.
Well, maybe this is the year.
If this is the year
that I mean, none of us called for this at the beginning of the year, but maybe this is finally the year that Tennessee can become nationally relevant again.
The stars are aligning for it to happen. They are. We're playing an Alabama team that's not as good as Alabama teams in the past. We played, I don't want to say a bad LSU team, but an LSU team that's down. We ended up pulling out a good one against Pitt, and we ended up beating Florida, who we arguably should have beat by a lot more, but we ended up pulling out a close one there.
And I know that I typically, I'll say I'm not very confident in this pick. If I am not confident, I'm actually pretty confident in this pick. I really think Tennessee's going to win this game. So now, does that mean Alabama is for sure going to lose? No. I mean, they're still Alabama. But like I said, I've had this feeling for literally months now that if this game, if there was any chance of Tennessee winning this game, I was going to pick Tennessee. So.
Yeah, so I think that'll do it for this week's podcast.
Yes, I want to thank everyone. By the way, Cheez-Its, you need to sponsor us.
Oh yeah, we gave you some free ad revenue right there. So
yeah, way back at the at the beginning.
Yep. Please sponsor us.
Yes,
that'd be nice.
Please sponsor us, and this will be going on YouTube again because we're cheap and we don't want to have to. We don't want to
fork out money when we're not making money doing this. We're just doing it for fun.
We don't want to put this on SoundCloud or Spotify because those have fees, and YouTube doesn't. So that concludes this episode of the Verts podcast. We'll see you next week.
Go Vols.